such as tobacco, alcohol, or other drugs. These can worsen your mental and physical well-being. Need help and support? Please contact us at the hotline 311, psychosocial support at 722-6575 or 518-4157. Brought to you by PAHO, the OACS Commission, and UNICEF.
The opinions expressed on this TV program by the host, co-host, guest, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions and responsibility of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of UTV or its affiliates.
To all sons and daughters who love the land that gave them birth, thank you all for joining the revolution. It is Tuesday, the 8th of May, 2021, or, as we now have to know it, it is the third day of the 6th year of the 5-year term of the Chasney administration. Yep, thanking all those locked in on UTV 124 on Flow, of course those locked in on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitch, on what else is there? Where YouTube, yes, and our radio station partners, of course, Hits Radio. Yes, we know we stress you all out because I beat my ass too much and I talk too long and I play too many long clips, but it's all for the greater good. And plus, y'all have ET in the morning talking his crap any which way. So, hey, at least we're balancing stuff off. Why not? One birthday greeting I want to send out, and that is to Dame Paulette Louise. Happy birthday to you. I must say, on a personal level and on behalf of all St. Lucians, you typify everything that every St. Lucian man, woman could be. You exemplified, you held your office with dignity and poise, and you have achieved something that many cannot say, and that is you achieved the highest form of political respect and unity to see that you were appointed by Kenny Anthony and you were retained by Sir John. That speaks volumes to your transcendent personality and acumen. And yes, people will not take lightly the fact that Chasney will replace you with somebody 10 years, 11 years older than you, because you refuse to rubber stamp all of the documents that came for your signature and authorization to give Queen's Chain to foreigners like is happening under Shadell Mall right now. But I do wish you a happy birthday. You are an inspiration to many, and you are literally a living legend in our time. Folks, where do we start today? Well, we have to go right down from the heights of somebody like Dame Paulette Louise to, sadly, another lady.
I want you. This is the bombshell here tonight, folks. That's it right here now. I ain't taking no break. I'm dropping it on you. I want you to watch, I want you to see a letter written and signed by Philip J. Pierre, acting as Prime Minister. And I will read whilst you read along with me, so you can see the hypocrisy, the lies, the deception, the propaganda, the constant doom and gloom, and everything. And that is why I will say again that they don't want to talk about the past. They don't want to delve into the past. They don't want to bring up the past because the past reveals the bluff. That's what the past does. When you examine things, you look back and you say, wow, and then you begin to understand. Then you begin to see the pattern of behavior. Then you begin to see the hypocrisy because you have the benefit of looking at everything in its totality. Put it up! The evidence. Office of the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, dated September 4th, 2015. You want proof that they were talking to Teo King before elections? 1 year before. Dear sir, go back up again. Let me show the date again. September the 4th, 2015. 9 months before elections. Let's go now. Dear sir, and that's addressed to Mr. Teo King, Chairman, the China Horse Club, and his address in Hong Kong. Dear sir, the government of St. Lucia is pleased that your company, Desert Star Holdings Limited, is well advanced in its plans to invest in an what? International horse racing track and support services, tourism and residential accommodation, commercial and entertainment facilities at Beausejour, Vieux Fort, St. Lucia. I wish to assure you that every effort consistent with the laws of St. Lucia shall be made to facilitate these investments and ensure their commencement at the earliest possible time. The government of St. Lucia looks forward to further developing a relationship with Desert Star Holdings Limited and will be prepared to sign a memorandum of understanding outlining our respective responsibilities in such endeavors. We thank you for your interest in St. Lucia, dang nammit. The same man that don't want no horse racing track. The same man that just tell you is going to encourage gambling. And all the negative things they say. All that the angry horsemen have been saying. All that the VFCCC talk about our lands and giving away our lands and all of this nonsense. Member guy.
Now, I didn't want to deal with this, but to be honest with you, I took my time and I said I can't resist it. And the reason I can't resist it is because in America, because the election dates are set, I think election day is November 5th in the United States, there's what they call the October surprise. So close to elections, people hold some big bombshell thing that they're going to put out. So that they put out something that's going to change the election narrative, maybe make somebody who is going to lose win, maybe make somebody who's going to win lose, you know, that kind of a thing. Something that forces all kinds of political drama and all kinds of stuff like that. And lo and behold, Norbert never fails to underwhelm. As a matter of fact, I think he actually did me a favor, because I am happy to talk about the United Workers' Party's signature project of DSH and the absolute failure it is and how it typifies the Chasney administration. That's part one. But also to contrast Chasney with the leader of the opposition. So first in the letter, let's put up the letter so people can see. And it's not new, it's been about a week old, but like I said, I took my time. And let's zoom in on it a little bit. September 4th, 2015. All the rest of that. The acting Prime Minister, Philip J. Pierre. And there, I only need to focus on one or two things. First, that he speaks to an investor, investing. In other words, St. Lucia, and we can come off of that and we'll go back to it. So leave it as it is, but just come off of it for a minute. Folks, you as the leader or Deputy Prime Minister, acting or the Prime Minister, have a duty to be diplomatic to everyone. You have a duty to be nice to everyone. You can't be like Chasney, who talks to foreigners one way and then chides St. Lucians and huffs them and jowie them. Stop it! You know, all that kind of stuff. You have to have a demeanor that befits the office. Then you have people who are coming and they are claiming to be legitimate investors. They're going to put some skin in the game. They are going to put their own money. They're going to put some equity. They're going to do something. And at that point, when Teo King is speaking to you, then that's exactly what you do. And you go through the process. Now, what they won't tell you is that when Teo King came, the Labour Party did the right thing by inviting business holders, key stakeholders, the National Trust and other stakeholders from Vieux Fort for consultation. the antithesis of the Shastri administration, where Shastri just said, he and Guy, they just signed something after 3 months in office. They can't believe the Labour Party just passed up on a deal. The Labour Party negotiated with these people, Tewa King, for 18 months to strip out most of the offensive clauses. Then Kenny Anthony asked that they be passed on to Kim St. Rose for review as the Attorney General, and she said, nope, it's not good. So they left it there. And you know what Shastri did? Not only did he sign it, but on top of that, he let all of the clauses that were stripped out to protect St. Lucia back in. How do you know? The framework agreement, it is online. All you have to do is just type in DSH framework agreement. You don't even have to type in St. Lucia, and you'll get it. And you'll see that the St. Lucian leader actually allowed and agreed to set up a bank account overseas, deliberately keeping it out of the jurisdiction of St. Lucia. And that is what Kenny Anthony and Anthony Astafan are taken to court, because no prime minister should be able to take the power of our sovereignty and yet find ways to obfuscate, find ways to circumvent that, so that you can do things over an escrow account where Tewa King has final say as a master developer. And folks, an escrow account by definition is supposed to be both parties have equal rights, but Tewa King has the final say. If there's any money left, he can take it. If you want to put dentures for the horses, right, or he wants to bronze their horse shit, he can do that even if you say no, even if we as a country say no. That's the kind of stuff that is in the DSH framework agreement. And yes, according to Shastri, as it has been said many times before, it is legally binding. But let's put that back up for one other part. Let's put that letter back up for one other part. Consistent, notice how the Beaufest man just glosses over that. I wish to assure you that every effort consistent with the laws of St. Lucia. Once again, Philip J. Pierre, consistent with the laws of St. Lucia. So here you have Norbert trying to throw Philip J. Pierre under the bus, and yet he's actually showing somebody who respects the laws of St. Lucia, even in an acting prime ministerial capacity. And yet we've had Shastri, and we can come off of that, we've had Shastri literally just going willy-nilly with regard to the laws. When have you ever seen a presentation of the names of the people who have gotten passports by law? Where is our deputy speaker? By law, right? Where is all the accounting for the CIP projects? And what is the situation with the range? Because the money for the range had to come out of CIP, some $30 million. You see, transgressions abound. So to me, if anything, but they'll say I'm biased and exoneration. But here's the bottom line. Folks, this is the same government that having Flabo Forum to talk about their achievements. But they're talking about that horseshit deal, the horseshit economics that they put out there, and the fact that not only did it not work, it was never going to work in the first place.
Is this whole issue of St. Lucia's love affair with grand projects. If you're not delivering a grand project, you're not running the country right. Why is that so, Senator Auger?
I'm not sure that our people are particularly enamored of large projects, because there have been a lot of them, these grand dreams that have not actually materialized. And certainly they have not materialized in the time frames anticipated, because government's implementation capacity is woefully overstated in most budgets that including this one. And even the over 7% of GDP financing gap in this budget is an issue that we ought to talk about, because it clearly suggests that there is more that will not get done and which will not get financed. But back to the projects, I don't know that there is anything particularly visionary about the Pearl of the Caribbean project. I think that it is very imitative. I think it's a reproduction or an attempt at a reproduction of a large Dubai project. And I think also that in some imaginations it was to do for Viewfort, which of course would have been a political statement as well, would have been to do for Viewfort what John Compton did for Grocery. I think that is what people were reaching for. And in the way that the Rodney Bay development transformed the sleepy fishing village into the the center of the St. Lucia tourism product, there was, I believe, in some imaginations, the beginning of that, copying it and transferring it down to Viewfort. What we fail to do in our quest for these projects and our big dreams is to consult the people who live in those places and who are going to be affected and ask them whether or not this is what they envisage. There's a wonderful story of a village, I think it's in Costa Rica, who were offered tourism investment, and they got together, the citizens, and they said, well, what exactly is this going to do for us? And the authority said, well, look down the road at your neighbor community. Look at the wonderful things it has done for them. And when the village looked down the road at their neighbor community, they said, you know what, no thanks. We'll stay as we are, because we're seeing more evils arising out of that particular brand of development than we want for our community. We own our land, we enjoy our environment, we support our families. We may not have bank accounts in the Cayman Islands or the Bahamas, but you know what? We have a decent standard of living that is sustainable in the environment that we have known for generations. And they opted not to go for that brand of tourism. We, I think, have never done that, subject to correction. And let us also remember that if Rodney Bay, Gros Islet Rodney Bay, is the example, that there were huge environmental costs to that development, which were generally swept under the table. But look at the village of Gros Islet today and ask yourself whether that is whether that's an ideal outcome, and whether a village with $1,000 a night hotel rooms all around it should be looking the way that Gros Islet is looking today. And what are the people in Gros Islet selling in the wee hours of the night and the morning? It's not altogether savory. So where has that mammoth development placed the people of Gros Islet, the everyday people on Church Street? Where has it left them? And I would say not very much further from where they are.
Back in the 2017-2018 budget, we were definitely exposed to a lot of grandiose ideas. We were told about the Desert Star Holding project, $2.7 billion worth of investment. I think about 7 new hotels were promised as well during that period. This is 2017, so we're now on to the 5th and final budget. And interestingly enough, there's no mention of all those grandiose plans. Do you think that because they just simply did not materialize really over that period, and maybe there is some form of a realization, or is it shame? I'm trying to understand why is it that we weren't hearing about these grand plans about hotels?
They've evaporated. You know, it's you can con people long enough. This Pearl of the Caribbean, this concept, when I first heard it, and I heard people discussing of all this money and the connection, and you're going to connect Maria Island, etc. And the monies that was spent, we weren't in a crisis mode yet, but it was the wrong focus. It was the wrong focus for the South. It was the wrong focus for the economy.
But some people said they loved it. I mean, this was
Viewfort
needed the investment.
You see, the problem
we needed something to
this blind loyalty that we have, and now party is in power. So if we have a ladder that can take us to the moon, we all cheering and waving the flag of the color of the party. It's dangerous. We are not focused. There's not wide island consultation on our priority, on what is needed for the economy. How do we nurture entrepreneurs? How do we invest in the creative industries? How do we broaden the linkages in the marine industry? How do we develop marine parks? Or, what's the discussion on crown lands? The land bank. How do we discuss in a mature way access to waterfront by all? We don't do that. Instead, we cling on to certain projects, we try to sell a con, and reality creeps in and we can't deliver, and they just evaporate. But the money has been spent. The promises have been made.
Do you think that, in terms of what Cuthbert is saying, that you can just put that down, this love affair that we have with these grandiose plans, to partisan affections? Or do you think that there's something about the St. Lucian psyche that has told us that you've got to come with some grand plan, some billion-dollar plan, and you know, people will only then will they think that you're serious about development. Is that how we
Well, I think
figure
it's a
development
mixture of
is?
a lot of things, and I'll let my other colleagues. But I'll say one thing: I was very disappointed that the Chamber of Commerce didn't call a spade a spade. I mean, come on! If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And for the Chamber of Commerce to have sat there and very reliable persons in their field to come on television and stroke this myth that somebody was going to connect Maria Island and we were going to have a Dubai in the south. And
23 islands as well.
yeah, and it was no longer going to be called Vieux-Fort. And when somebody asks you, where you from, you're going to say, you know, I'm from the Pearl Caribbean, and you say it in Mandarin.
Say it with
and,
pride.
and for reasonable, educated people within the Chamber of Commerce to allow this rhetoric to continue, I mean, these are the results.
Could I just jump in there since you're in the pool of the Caribbean?
Okay, well, I don't know if Adrian doesn't mind. You can hold your thoughts a little bit longer, Adrian.
Yes.
Shock Carlton, go ahead.
You know, this pool of the Caribbean thing is very upsetting. We're supposed to be a nation of intelligent people. And if you read the DSH agreement, if you look at Theo Atkins' history, he never puts in any of his money. And the whole DSH was dependent upon our CIP. People are not aware of that. But the CIP Act was changed to accommodate DSH. So that as long as we were able to sell the passports and give Theo King that money, we may have had a project. But if you look at the performance of our CIP, we've not been able to sell as many passports. For example, over the last 5 years, Dominica raised over $1 billion from the CIP. We are barely scratching about 130 million. So people should have read the DSH agreement. For one, it says the stat, Theo Atkins' share is only 10%. And I think that's kind of critical because by international standards, you're considered a direct investor if you have 10% or more. But wherever he goes, he's a developer. And he refers to himself in the project as a developer. Yet some of us want to refer to him as so he never intended to put in his own money. And my biggest objection is that horse racing can never transform an economy like ours. We would have created, even if it was successful, we would have created a playground for the rich and famous, and in keeping it the new St. Lucia, we would have the haves and the have-nots.
And another reason why it could never work is that if you don't have the fundamental ancillary services, then you can't have a bourgeois enclave. You ever wonder why Bill Clinton came here and left? Because he couldn't overnight. They can't overnight because of our healthcare system. So what billionaire is going to want to come to play golf at Cabot and go to the races down at DSH and then turn around, and if they get into a car accident, they have to go in the stadium where there's no x-ray machine. And even if they go Tapio or wherever else, it's not much better. That's the point. But you see, I must say, I don't quote him often, but I agree with Richard Frederick on one thing. For me, philosophically, when it comes to development, especially taking into account the things that we have learned the hard way, I would rather have $30 million investments than to have $1 billion investment. In other words, gradual, smaller projects like what Kenny Anthony was doing with the Range project, you know, that type of a thing where you have one here, one there, so that you're not mortgaged or committed for decades to come. So let me give you an example. We are talking about DSH as a past tense project. Oh, it failed. Folks, we're in the middle of what is a 15-year project So for all those that were even going down by the horse race track and beating their ass like Herod Marius, boy, I saw this great thing and this, that, and the other, and Russell and all of them that were bigging up this thing, great horse race. They sent coasters to every part of St. Lucia to give people free transportation and giving out yellow shirts. They even made the security wear yellow shirts. They had a concert with Jack Yor and everything. $900,000 worth of AstroTurf artificial grass just to make the thing look good. And at the end of all of that, folks, we still have decades to go in this commitment. But you can tell how much of a con it is when it's supposed to come to fruition. Teo Aking would be 83 years old and Shasney would be 81 years old. And these two con men you think are going to wait around? Oh no, they already have passports selling in an overseas account where Teo Aking has final say. We don't know who the members of the China Horse Club are, and they shady over in China and in the horse racing world. So we don't know if there are any ministers or their fathers or their families that have shares just like Ojo Labs and all the rest of that. But folks, let's be honest here. Even Teo Aking and Shasney himself said that the former administration passed on the deal.
I asked him, I said, Teo, will you help us? He said, what do you want, Alan? I said, I want you to put together a master plan for the whole of Viewfort. The Labour Party will have you believe that I have given all the lands to Mr. Teo Aking. He would have you believe that we give him the stadium. We gave him those things to help us develop those things. We gave him those things to help us develop those things.
Move to a project known to St. Lucians as DSH. Or every time I hear it, I call it Delivering Southern Hope. Mr. Aking is looking at the possibility of using Chinese construction companies for his development, but not phase one. Phase one, which is the race course, is being done through local contractors.
I want to bring Chinese down. Chinese? What's going on here? What's going on here?
And I know of the love and the passion that the people in the South have. And I know how great they are going to be at taking care of horses.
24 individuals have successfully completed an entry-level training course in the grooming of race horses. The training was facilitated by Groom Elite Program Inc. out of Stanford, Kentucky, through the National Apprenticeship Program.
Will then be reimbursed through the CIP program, of which they're responsible for marketing the CIP program. Once the track is paid for, we will then take back ownership of the land. So no longer will there be a lease. And once we take back the land, we will then enter into a management contract with China Horse Club to be able to manage and operate the track facility.
And we cannot be afraid to embrace the development, because without it, there is no hope for our people.
Up until, I believe, and I recall correctly, up until May 2016, which is already a year gone past, we were told to hold on, and as you know, our home, and we are based in Singapore, it always takes more than 30 hours to reach here, and you can't fly back. So every trip coming here, as a chairman of the group, we have businesses all over. It's quite draining, and we were not sure then whether our proposal or the content of the proposal was seriously, whether it's going to go ahead with the kind of response. So we indeed, after being told that the signing is not going to happen, so we kind of took the message very clearly that the administration are not going to entertain this project. But we didn't make any announcement and so on just wait.
The political tide has changed in St. Lucia as voters ousted the St. Lucia Labour Party, SLP, pushing the St. Lucia Labour Party, led by Dr. Kenny Anthony, out of office. In a press conference after the results were announced, Prime Minister-elect Alan Chastany says his party will deliver on its election promises to revive St. Lucia's economy.
But some of my friends knew about it. Some friends from Barbados and so on and so forth. They said, why don't you, Theo, explore other islands? You have great ideas. I think the idea is very good. Why don't you come over? And I did. Then stop over in Barbados.
The DSH project was inherited by my government. It's a project that, if I'm not misunderstanding, 16 months or 15 months of negotiations had been taking place between Invest St. Lucia and the DSH group. In fact, when they first came here, what they were interested in building was just a horse racing track. And that then grew to a bigger project. And the location, the original location that was designated for DSH was primarily driven by government, not by DSH. So the area by Beau-Saint-Jou and also using the mangrove, that's what happened. So when I came in and I met with Mr. Tia King, and Mr. Tia King had basically gotten frustrated with St. Lucia and had moved on. So in fact, it was a businessman in another country who was showing him around, who said to him, look, there's a new prime minister in St. Lucia. I know him. I think he's a great guy. Why don't you give him a call? Because it seems that your heart's still set on St. Lucia. So he came over. I met with him. I was extremely impressed with him. And in terms of what he had told me that he had done. I did my own due diligence. I called up friends in Dubai. Is it true that Mr. Atia King was the architect behind the Palm Island? The answer was yes. Is it true that he was the architect and the main contractor overseeing the construction of the major the horse racing track in Dubai? The answer was yes. Was he a graduate of Harvard University, top of his class in architecture and master planning? The answer was yes. Did he design and build for the Malaysian government, their government city outside of Kuala Lumpur? The answer was yes. I then took him up on his offer and I went to China. And going to China was not an easy decision because of our relationship with Taiwan. But I met with the Taiwanese and I met with everybody else and I said, if there's going to be a business conference in which there are opportunities for St. Lucia to grow and to the benefit of our country, no country in the world is off my territory where I go. So I went because he was hosting a major event of a horse racing event in what we call Inner Mongolia. And this was an area in which the government of China had given him 6,000 acres of land and had given him a horse racing track that they had built for a celebration, an international airport, and they also built a monorail system, a fast bullet train that would be 2.5 hours to Beijing. So when I went there, who did I meet? I met with horse racing stables from Kentucky, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Malaysia. And I started understanding what the China Horse Club was about. China Horse Club was a group of individuals who had a passion for horse racing. And so the membership is $1 million to be able to join the club. And they have over 300 members. And that group now has become the 9th largest syndicate of thoroughbred horses in the world. So they're the 9th largest owner of thoroughbred horses in the world. So I was sufficiently impressed that the people that I met were well established in their industry and had an incredibly high regard for Teo.
So I came here to see that the government of St. Lucia failed. And when I reached here, I realized this is the best thing that can ever happen to St. Lucia.
Eu passava no hospital, eu passava no hospital, eu passava no hospital, veio capa no chuva.
People all across the communities and constituencies of this country are being impacted negatively. In the absence of strong policy responses, the COVID-19 crisis could deepen disparities between communities, even in the St. Lucia. So better resource communities are going to do much better than the poor communities. And you see, Mr. Speaker, we might end up with a situation where we have a few rich people and the majority of people are poor, because the middle class, if they are in free fall, will disappear. And you know, Mr. Speaker, they take it lightly. Members opposite take everything lightly, that the warnings are of no consequence. We are about to open up the country. We are about to borrow for infrastructure to give people jobs to do. Those people who are the barber shops and had to close it because of COVID-19, are they going to be employed in those projects? The people with the hairdressing salon, are they going to be included in this? The people on the block, all of those people, are they going to be catered for? The point is, the people of this country require assistance. And they require that assistance urgently, or else by the end of 2020, thousands of families who existed above the poverty line will be below the poverty line. I can speak on behalf of my constituents that we are not leeches. The leeches are those who come to a poor country and want the country to spend over $3 million doing baptême cheval for them. Spend millions of dollars diverting roads. A leech will come here, like those who go in our NIC funds and take millions of dollars for some Cabot Link project.
Mr. Speaker,
these are the leeches.
Understanding a point of order. Mr. Speaker, I have allowed the member from Labrie to say that in previous sessions of the House, where he has used the word leech to describe investors in this country. I would like him to desist and desist from making those statements. He may not appreciate the investment that's being made, but to use derogatory language to describe them, Mr. Speaker, of persons who have come to this country, invested their money, created jobs in this country, and are helping to promote this country every day, Mr. Speaker, I have a strong objection to him doing that.
I'm not doing that. That's not the point of order.
Honorable member.
Mr. Speaker.
No, let me just say something. I would say that investment is a very crucial part of our economic development. And I would ask you to be very careful how you refer to persons that partake or assist us in our economic development.
Mr. Speaker, two things. One, the member from Miku South will not instruct me in this house as to what I can say or what I cannot say. I am quite conversant with the procedures of this house, and I will take no directive from the member from Miku South. And secondly, anyone who comes here, we have to take millions of dollars to divert road for. This is a small and vulnerable economy. I have every right to express in the most profound way my displeasure and my dissatisfaction with what is happening. When the Majomel Road is in a deplorable condition, it needs to be repaired. $13 million is being spent for Tioaking to divert a road, and I must come here and I will not call Tioaking a leech.
Speaker, on a point of order.
Honorable member.
I'm not going to yield. You have no point of order. Yes.
The first phase of the Desert Star Holdings DSH investment project in Vieux is coming to fruition with accompanying opportunities for St. Lucians. The newly built horse racing track on December 13, 2019 will welcome the Peter Cup.
That when people say I am from Vieux Fort, soon people will not know Vieux Fort. You are from the pearl of the Caribbean.
The National Apprenticeship Program has facilitated the training and certification of more than 20 persons.
It will employ hundreds of people and blah, blah, blah. When the horse racing track begins, young people from everywhere will be employed.
About jobs.
How do you know that, Colin?
From DSH. Of course I know that.
To employ, I'm hoping close to over 1,000 young persons.
No, we're looking at over 1,500 jobs.
Over 1,500 jobs, 1,000 people. Folks, you notice the pattern, the same narcissistic pattern that has put a comatose state over St. Lucia, that when something is going well, the government deserves all the credit, and when something turns out to be crap, or it's been handled badly, then it's all of our responsibility. When COVID was going well, oh, it was the government is the best in the world. When the numbers start to climb, all of a sudden, the Rastafarian community and the Christian community and the opposition and all the other people have to come and take responsibility, right? It's the same way. When it's for tourism, it's coexists with COVID. But when it's elections, we must reach herd immunity. You know what they're doing now? You know they're actually telling people, spreading lies so much. They're saying if you aren't vaccinated, you will not be allowed to vote. That's the kind of stuff that's going on here. Misinformation campaign galore. But we know and we've seen it and we felt it. The Chasney philosophy. Just imagine the CIP unit employs at least 2 companies to vet every person that comes in to apply for a passport. Due diligence firms, they're actual companies that dig into people's backgrounds to make sure or try their best to vet the people. And yet, instead of Chasney using government apparatus that was already there, and even more stringent before they relaxed the regulations for CIP, Chasney made a call to somebody in Dubai and asked him, did Tewa King go to school at Harvard? Yeah, what the hell is that? But you notice something. You ever notice how gracious and enamored he is with people who are rich? Chasney equates being wealthy with being a good person, and being poor with being a bad person. And he equates poverty with mendicancy. It meant the person didn't want to work hard. Somebody's a double amputee, like that lady who got her leg amputated off wrongly, and she's 84. Oh, it's her fault, you know, that kind of a thing, because she should have made herself, pull herself by her bootstraps, even if she doesn't have legs. That kind of mentality. And then you get the sycophants like Norbert, you get all the rest of those who actually try to sort of push that same narrative. And that's why we have no middle class right now. There are only the haves and the have-nots. And right now the haves, because they're getting direct largesse from this government through the FFF, conduits, the octopus type thing, because of that, what you end up having is a whole bunch of people with anxieties and paranoia about losing power, even if they've stolen millions. You ain't about lawyers associated with the Prime Minister trying to sell land and get government to buy land at this 12th hour, because we're 3 days into the 6th year of this government's 5-year term, that they get in their top lawyers, they want government to buy $9 million worth of land in ancillary, right? For one of the Prime Minister's top lawyer friends, right now in the 11th hour. So everybody's rushing to get what is theirs. And folks, the first thing you learn in any basic economics is the middle class is the backbone of your economy. The lower class, or I don't like to say that, but let's call it the lower echelons of society, the poor, the indigent, they're hand to mouth. Whatever money they get, they just have to pay bills. They're just trying to struggle to survive. The rich have the option to go and put their money in other places. They can afford to hold their money and not participate in your economy. But the middle class are the ones that take the mortgages, that start the small businesses, that buy the 3 and 4 bedroom house and the cars, and they send their children to the schools, and they help to pay for health care. In any country, a democratic country, a capitalist economy, the middle class is what drives the economy. And if you haven't noticed, not only has Chasney's policies decimated the middle class, not only has he invented, along with Guy Joseph, an artificial class of people who, even if they have money, don't have the know-how. So it's not, I'm not trying to be derogatory, but when you take somebody who doesn't have any skill in construction and you keep giving them contracts, then what happens is that person now has to go through doing shitty contracts, shitty projects while they learn. Whereas those who were engineers, their businesses atrophy, they wither, And then this person is building projects that we saw it with the T-Canal government of Stephenson King, that when you see the BRC comes up in the road later and the pieces of the road break off in chunks, all of these things are happening. You see it in Chasney's signature, Chasney Drive down in Miku. Not even 30 days after it was done, you already have cracks and holes and all kinds of stuff up to this day. And my point is that if you look at DSH, it is the perfect analogy for the Chasney mentality and just the kind of risk he's willing to take with your money. How cavalier he can be with your future. And when they tell you they're building a new St. Lucia, the only way you can say that with conviction, like Guy Joseph said it as well, is when you see no value in what St. Lucia is already. All that we have achieved and all that we have become and how much we have been punching above our own weight for decades now. And instead you just shit all over that because you made a couple phone calls. And instead, the truth, well, the truth is that the Palm Island that Teo King was involved in is just mush in the sea.
Because you know, the reality about doing master planning, and this is the issue here at the heart here, is that you have to involve the people, the stakeholders. So this idea that a man is coming from Singapore and he's just going to drop a master plan on you and you just accept it is disastrous. It doesn't happen that way. You know, only countries that have vast amounts of resources and you can come and you can sell anything to them and they have enough money to do it, that it works out. And that is why perhaps you can see that Teo Aking's greatest achievement as an architect was in Dubai, right? Because they have money. They've got money, right? Or at least they used to be rolling in so much money so that they could in fact bankroll a lot of these projects. But you know, I like to sometimes show you, because when you hear about these stories about Teo Aking being the billionaire, last week we showed you the little little Alpina resort in a little town in a far-flung part of Switzerland, which is his only real property, hotel property that he can talk about. We showed you that last week. But I just want to show you again, just for a reminder, because, you know, it's important to see these things. And the reality is right now we can do this thanks to the wonderful technology of Google. And again, thanks to Google Earth. And this is, as you can see, the Arabian Peninsula. And we can zoom in and we can find Dubai. Oh, look, right here. It's so easy to find now because, you know, Dubai went and they decided to do these palms, right? And this is what people talk about so very much, right? So this is Dubai, the main city around here on the right-hand side. But we can see these palm islands which they created, which are these massive real estate development areas which you can see from space, right? So that's the idea. So this is the first palm, then they built another one across here. You realize how empty and barren it is? This is 2021, eh? This is 2021 images, right? And then, of course, they did the world. You can see it. Nice, shaped like the world, right? And you see how nice and barren it is? Okay, maybe a few little parts here. I think Sweden is developed or something like that. Or is that Norway, right? But for the most part, these have been fairly bad real estate disasters. Right? These reclamation projects have largely been disasters. But you know what? They have money to burn, right? So they can afford to put up these islands and then half of them are sinking or whatever the case may be. Now, we hear sometimes that Teo Aking was involved in a real estate project, Palm Island. Now, I've shown you two palms. He wasn't involved in those palms, right? Let me just show you, if you could go back to screen, please. He was involved in the fourth, as a review architect, I think in the fourth phase of review of another palm project. Oh, I missed it. You know why? Because it's not even shaped as a palm, because it was never even completed. But this is what it's supposed to be here, right? This was going to be this Palm Jumeirah, right? But again, even the great Dubai ran out of money. All right, and they couldn't even finish this project, right? So this is what was the involvement of Teo Aking. And remember, it wasn't his money. It It's the people of Dubai's money. That's who had the money to bankroll these types of massive projects of reclaiming stuff in and they couldn't even finish it. I think they've decided to just make do with what is existing, and so they're no longer going to be doing the massive palm. You could see the top.
We can win this war. Get vaccinated. We're taking our life back. Get vaccinated.
My health and strength is my profession. It is the top priority to me and my family. By taking the COVID-19 vaccine, I can protect those who are vulnerable in my family and also my clients. To all the health-conscious persons and the athletes, I would like to say, COVID-19 has no friends, and we healthy persons can be affected as well. And worse yet, we can pass it on to those amongst us who are vulnerable. I'm looking forward to having a full class again and not having to choose which clients can come to work out today and tomorrow. I'm looking forward to our fitness family getting back together.
Get vaccinated.
This message is brought to you by the Bureau of Health Education of the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
You're watching UTV, TV for you.
No, but you need man give and man thing you can that. Okay. What are you doing? You're protesting or whatever?
No, I just knock my phone.
No.
I can knock phones together?
No. You can knock your phone, but you see what you are doing there, sir, please. Just refrain from it, alright?
Okay.
Please refrain from it.
So, there's one thing I must say about the UWP, this iteration. They are extremely coordinated. Whenever you hear Jugwa say something in the morning, you will see Timothy, Russell and them will raise it when Russell was there, and out goes in, and then you'll have, and Charlie will do his bit, and then you'll have Timothy, and then Rick Wayne will call in to hammer it, and then the Bowfest man will do it in the night, and then Minerva Sword will be doing it on Facebook, and from there they make a whole push. But with this one, it would appear that they seem to be a bit discombobulated, because look, folks, I've pointed out, I understand all of the issues, and I'm not going to tell anybody to go on the Prime Minister or anybody's private property to go and protest. If he had jumped the fence, if it was government house or any of those things, I would not say anything. But I keep pointing out one thing that nobody seems to want to talk about. In the same way that Shasney heard it, in the same way that the Johnson's house is just before that, where they started off walking, they heard it. In the same way that Ernest Hilaire lives literally next to Shasney, he heard it, because it's a communal space. And just so you know, there will be noises there from time to time, because there's a clear space, which, like I said, I went to yesterday and showed you, and I'll show you again, a lady playing with her dog. But now you have to ask yourself, are there too many consultants? people fraying. What's the plan here? Are we going to be selling this as the guy was trying to come to assassinate the Prime Minister and blow up bombs and blow up the whole of Rodney Bay? Or are we going to say, oh, I just wish he had brought some Buddha. I wish the guys had brought some Buddha, buy Buddha. What are we going to do? Are we going to clown it? Or are we going to make it a serious? Okay, let's go with the Nobas version first.
So let me give you the salute report context of the Prime Minister's residence. Size. If you notice, they were recording size of the location, size of the personnel there. How many? How many police officers came out? How long did it take them to come out? Which would suggest that if we get there, if the police take 30 seconds to respond, we have 20 seconds. You see the bank robbery movies, you see the things on TV, we're not unexposed. So fellas say, well, from the moment we break the glass and the alarm goes off, the silent alarm goes off, it takes the police 2 minutes to get here, so we have a minute and a half. Tell me then so. So was what happened yesterday a dry run for a future incident? That is why they had to be brought in for investigation. 48 hours or 72 hours while you investigate. La pani pièce avocat sa fait yo sorti a sous ça. It's not about disturbing the peace. If somebody goes by somebody's house where they have a charcoal pit and does that, that's a different situation. Different situation. And I've given you all the context of what happened before and what's been going on. You tell me 1 hour later or whatever, this idiot out again creating more trouble about the place. I mean. So, let's get back to that acronym, salute. So now they evaluate how many people come out, right? What was the purpose of the road? Did everybody respond to the front while somebody could pull in a boat at the back? Was the Marine Police called to conduct an initial sweep of the area at the back to make sure that there were not other people who were planning to do something on the water side? Which continues to support the question that I have about the period of time that it took for this guy to be released. It's not about disturbing the peace. A of the salute. Activity. What were they doing? Were they in the front yard? Were they on the balcony? Were they not visible? What? L. Location. Where were they? Well, the location is the Prime Minister's residence. U. Uniform. What were they wearing? Were they in fatigues? Because later on you have to be able to identify them, to make them out, so you don't confuse them with guests, or you don't confuse them with the family or whatever. Who are the people you have to be concerned about? What are they wearing? Time. What time was it? And E, equipment. Did they have submachine guns? Did they have rifles? Did they have sidearms? Weapons visible? And whatever else you want to include in that report. But that is the foundation of the report, a salute report. Was there anybody at the back? Did they not make any noise and simply observe? Well, everybody ran to the front. Look, the back was open. Everybody there should have been arrested yesterday. Every one of their homes should have been searched. Every one of their vehicles should have been searched. The log for their phones should have been acquired and cross-checked against other known numbers and other individuals, particularly within the past 24, 48 hours before the incident yesterday? Did they receive any call 5 minutes before they went there or they showed up? Because all of these things, all of that information will be clues to whether they're acting in concert with other people. And that same idiot left there or before there or whatever was up by another minister's supposed residence, Cafe Membaila. What is that about?
So you see, you have the one approach, which is what the UWP as a party wants to do. So the whole thing is that they need to come out strong, fire and brimstone. They need to do psychological evaluation. Where did you buy your pants? You know, what's your family? They need to take and search your home. All of that. Was he, how far in the property was he when he was clearly outside on the public space, which I drove by yesterday, and any St. Lucian can pass by right now, the same way they can pass by Hila's home, the same way they can pass by Mr. Glass's home, the same way they can pass by Mr. Sheriki's home, the same way they can pass by Mr. Habib's home, and all the other people that are there, and a couple of businesses. Oh yes, Osborne Dover's home, all the rest of them there. But no, because that's the fire and brimstone. But then you have some of the other surrogates who, well, let's see.
Yeah, I saw on, on social media many pictures of people across the island, and I guess you could look at it two ways.
Peter King says, given the circumstances that the country is now faced with the COVID-19 pandemic, there may be logical reasoning behind the delaying of the dating of the 2021 general elections. He says, however, there seems to be a high amount of anxiety on both sides of the fence.
I imagine there's a lot of strategy involved as to the timing, particularly when you don't have a fixed date, as we don't. And so it's part of their strategy as to what would be the best time for the incumbent party to call, and as long as our constitution allows that to happen, you can't take that strategy away from the incumbent government, the prime minister, who will do it in accordance with the constitution. So it remains to be seen as to when it is. A lot of people yesterday were telling me July. It's going to be in July. I don't know, because there are very few people obviously know. But my own personal feeling, and I've said it many times, I would like to get it out of the way because I think that we have a lot of important things to get on with. We've got a pandemic to get over, and we got an economy to run. And so the quicker we get this one out of the way, let people express their opinions, decide whether they want to change or not, and then we can move on.
According to Peter King, Sunday's pandem antics was simply the opposition's way of trying to get their message across.
People, I guess, wanted to get a message across, some people, that it was time to ring the bell, and so they wanted to kind of show in a non-violent way that that was one way of getting the message across. Nobody was hurt, I'm glad to hear. One or two may have got arrested. They may have their concerns with that. And interestingly, in an election that is being held during a pandemic, in which people's movements and everything are being restricted because of protocols, it's very difficult for a political party to try and get their message and their profile across.
Yep, and when you cannot create, you innovate. But while Mr. Peter King's comments seem very well measured, right, it is non-violent, that's the whole point of the pandem, that you don't have to shout anything, you don't have to do anything, you just eat your pan, you can stay at your home and do it. You can do it if you're 80 years old, if you're 18 years old, if you're 8 years old, it doesn't matter. And the Prime Minister knows that his popularity is beneath zero. So at the end of the day, he's going to have to play it on one end while the party wants to play it another way. The party wants to pursue its created narrative that the Labour Party is all about violence from 79, it's in their DNA, and violence. But the problem is, it's a tough sell with somebody like Philip J. Pierre, who does not come off as aggressive and never has and never will be. Always measured and poised. And then you turn around, Chasney, who is aggressive, now needs to soften himself up. So here comes the counter in PR. So there's PR for Chasney to make him look, hey, no big deal, while at the exact same time, the party is railing fire and brimstone.
Mamai Flabo, I want to thank all of you who
who've been calling me to find out if I'm okay when you heard about the incident that took place at my home on Sunday morning. I'm fine, thank you. But I have to say to you, I was a little bit disappointed. Because when these guys came in that hour in the morning, I thought what they were doing was bringing me some breakfast, some nice sauce, and some good boudin. But in typical Labour style, all these promises and they can't deliver anything. Instead, they came with empty pots and pans and making plenty noise. But you know what they say? Empty vessels make the most noise. Mamai Flabo, let's keep working.
Empty vessels make the most noise. Let's just think about all of the drivel that Shastni has said for the last 5 years and beyond as a career, as a pathological bullshitter and con man. Just think about that. But a couple of things. I don't know if it's a consultant or a local consultant like a Tony Nicholas that come swish in your ear and tell you, say Buddha, and you know, not Buddha, yeah, that kind of, but I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. Because he would never say KFC, although every other 5 seconds they're taking pictures of him inside a KFC, because this was well crafted, well thought out. If you haven't noticed, because they know of how bad his poll numbers are, they're making him do a video every day and it's, you know, in your face. I'm about to go take a shit. Watch the toilet paper. It's yellow, it's Mamai Flambeau, TP, that kind of a thing. No problem with that either. But you know what really struck me? And I know you'll say it's nitpicky. I was just thinking, how disconnected you have to be when people are ringing pans to symbolize not only to call elections so they can have their say, but also to show the oppression and also that there's nothing in the pan. And you can't connect to that to the point where you don't realize you have marginalized people. You have people who cannot get food, who cannot get anything. And still in that, the joke for you is that you thought they were going to bring you food. So people who you deny the opportunity to work, people who you have marginalized in preference so that you can help the FFF stay afloat, including your father and your inherited businesses to come. You're making sure that they are taken care of in all ways, government subsidized, government paid, everything towards sandals and towards Daddy's Hotel and towards the boats that go out on the tours and write off the debts for the tours going down to Soufre and everything. While in the meantime, so many businesses have been pushed out of the economy. So many people have been pushed out, and yet you want them to bring food for you? And I thought to myself, you know, that little moment because he was on CNN. What would Obama do? You know, he goes to the White House press corps dinners and the Associated Press dinners, and he makes jokes. But at the end of it, you know, he comes back to a solemn point. And in the same newscast that I saw Shastni doing this bit of PR, I saw this.
Construction of a home for a family of 3. The situation is dire for Marina Felix and her 3 children, the eldest being only 6 years old. They live in a 1-room dwelling. Makeshift galvanized enclosures make the structure almost intolerable to be in during daylight. They have no electricity, no pipe-borne water. The condition that the 3 small children are living in has struck a chord with residents who have committed to sourcing materials, making donations, and giving off their labor for free to help improve the living conditions of the family. Emerson Chalmine, who spearheaded the effort, says whatever the reason for the hard times that have fallen on the single mother, her children deserve better. And any society that cares about children and the vulnerable should not turn a blind eye to the suffering of these children. The community members are aiming to build a more habitable plywood structure for the family.
When we got there, we saw that she was living in a, let's say, 10 by 10 galvanized shed, more or less. 2 of the sides galvanized and the roof free, and down on the bare ground she has no flooring. It was like, wow, that's the state that we are in, because we see it as a community vibe, and the need for helping someone just came straight out of the heart.
The group of residents, in collaboration with the Schwurzel-based youth group Atlas, has sought the support of corporate partners to donate materials to the noble Kudme effort, where young men and women in the area will put their shoulders to the wheel and build an improved structure.
St. Lucia, do you love yourself? Do you love yourself? Have you learned to love yourself? When you can have somebody who has such alien values to you, right? It can sound funny. Hey, I just made a joke. Why don't you bring me food? I thought you were bringing me food. Why you have empty pots and pans? Colonialism had a conscience. You know, that type of mentality. While at the same time, that is the reality. Do you think that lady there with her children, hoping to just make it through tomorrow and bring hope to the children and the people who can see those people, will turn around and go and vote for Bradley, knowing Bradley is kowtowing to Guy Joseph, to Mangal, to Shasney and all of them, and Darian and all of those leeches and bloodsuckers, while these people stay behind? I mean, let's think about this. And to be honest, I just chose not to play the clip today. Do you think that that's just in Choiseul? That's the reality for so many people. Right now, those of you in the diaspora, you all know the amount of people taking lines all over the place in St. Lucia, MoneyGram, Western Union, whatever, because remittances is the only thing that's allowing people to survive Shasney. But he'll go to those same people and give them t-shirts and tell them go and protest, or go and rally with Herod, and go and rally with this one, that one, and they broke. And I saw a guy opposite Republic Bank in Rodney Bay, the same pristine Rodney Bay that we can't make noise in. Homeless on the same Sunday. But I'll show it soon. And then you turn around and you say to yourself, have we allowed ourselves to fall into that PR where we have forgotten that St. Lucia has the largest amount of wooden houses, the wooden housing stock in the whole of St. Lucia. We have a ton of unplanned developments, and we've had close to 30 plus fires and homes burnt around the country. And that attitude we are threatening that Shasney has and all of his house slaves like Norbert is actually what they are trying to rally people to support, which would leave a lady like that in Monsieur further disadvantaged if the little structure that she had got burnt down. Knowing that moving forward, this is a government, when they talk about their achievements, they can tell you how much they paid Ernst & Young, how much money they spent on Teoa King, how much money they had to pay for losing the range development, how much money they give in Galaxy and how many passports. They can tell you all of these fantastic, grandiose failures, and they never remember that up to this day, they would not reinstate the distress fund of $400,000 to $500,000 for people who would need a little help.
If I answer you, sign out. I won't fall in that trap. I'll rise above that. Madam Speaker, Prime Minister, expenditure, page 57, code 247. There was a distress fund of $417,000 when poor people's house got burned. They would apply from all constituencies. When poor people's houses got burned, they would apply to the parliamentary rep, and members of the other side have benefited from that facility. They would apply to the parliamentary rep, and the parliamentary rep would write to the Prime Minister, and he would give them some support after fire and that kind of thing. They've removed it. The distress fund. Distress fund. They've eliminated that. Nice, Madam Speaker. Under the Prime Minister.
At least 9 people, including 7 children, are now left homeless as a result of a fire which gutted through 2 wooden houses in the Fuashu community during the wee hours of Saturday morning. One house caught fire after neighbors heard an explosion, and the fire then spread to the other house. 2 wooden structures were completely destroyed. One of the affected in the incident, Natalie Ferdinand, gave her account of Saturday morning's unfoldings.
Saturday morning about after 1, so a fire started in the house over there, which I don't know what caused the fire. Then the house started to burn, and then it started coming towards my house. I had some clothes in the balcony, took the clothes, and then the clothes fell. Then we called the fire people. They took a little time to come, but then they came. But then by the time they was there, everything was already completely gone.
The Viewfort mother of the 18-year-old accident victim was grieving the loss of her daughter just 2 weeks earlier before receiving more tragic news on Tuesday afternoon. Her home was among the 2 houses which was destroyed by fire in Larishus. The blaze scorched one of the structures and left the other partially destroyed. Fire victims can be seen in the debris scrambling, hoping to salvage anything from the fire.
My son came to me to tell me there was a fire in the house by Yo-Yo, that's how they call him, Luke Dixon, in his house. So when I rushed across, I saw fire was already in the house. I ran for my phone to call the fire service. By the time I returned there, within about 10 to 15 minutes, my cousin's house set ablaze because they're in close proximity to each other.
Sherabin, who lost her home to a fire about a year ago, has been displaced and dependent on the benevolence of others to get by. As a result, the unemployed 51-year-old who last held a job in the STEP program is seeking assistance from the public or anyone listening. Before her home burnt down, there were 7 occupants, including her 6 children.
They are not in the home, they are everywhere. They live on the street, all on the street everywhere.
Did services take them in or anything?
No, they live in by people home, at people home. You understand? And I have nowhere to put them.
This Malay Way syndrome we have in St. Lucia, that everybody is so unfortunate that we have to accept the denier de guerre, the least common denominator for us to get by. Oh man, the man want to make a bread, man.
That's the mendicant mentality. That's the fundamental difference of what we're doing.
People have been displaced by a fire which devastated a Bize home on Wednesday morning. Loved ones are seeking public assistance for one of the fire victims, the elderly matriarch of the family who is stricken with a chronic illness. Joaquin Duplessis begins our reporting this evening.
6 people are without a place to call home after a fire gutted a Bize residence on Wednesday morning. Firefighters from the Castries firehouse reportedly responded to the raging blaze at the 2-story house at about 7:32 a.m. The top floor of the concrete and wooden structure was destroyed by the blaze. Brian Louisier says his mother was in the house when the fire began.
It's very sad. I don't know. I do not know. Forgive me, Jack. But God good, God great. She'll get back a house by the grace of God.
The matriarch of the family, Angela Antoine, is unwell and has limited mobility.
I'm actually bad because my son is malade. Oui, I want money for my little tapping my scan. And it's been avec tira matene, matene metti à dans base, tout tira ha brûlé. Papier docteur a brûlé, tout bail brûlé. Certificat money pour mener moi aller pour taper un scan taper. Because moi malade docteur a comme tablette comme oui mais doc m'a fait bien. So il m'a mon papier pour m'aller taper aller pour un scan. Oui, manipulation encore. Tout bail moi brûlé tout dat moi manipulation abdomen rien.
Where's the urgency? That's all I'm asking. So when you talk about that the Prime Minister is acting like a businessman and he thinks it's a business, well, that's how you act in business. It's not about profit, it's about process. So guess what? Acting like a politician, this is what you get. You get debt up to the kazoo. Means you have absolutely no discretionary income. And when people need help, but guess what? Help for you is that somebody burnt their house down or somebody had an accident and you got to go and help them on an individual basis. That's the mendicant mentality that we must get out of.
So the question is now not whether your family was UWP or Labour. I keep talking about right and wrong. But let's talk about love for a second. If you have somebody that has demonstrated that they will make decisions that marginalize you, if you tell me that somebody is telling you they can't make decisions for people on an individual basis, that's understandable in terms of policy, but what is policy if it does not affect people on an individual basis and make their lives better? And the question is, here you have somebody who has demonstrated that he does not care Even in the money that they borrowed to do the bridge, to do the road, to do the election projects, they still would not put $500,000. You borrow over $700 million in 6 months. In the middle of COVID, you didn't give stimulus, but you will not even re-establish the distress fund. Not even for political purposes would you do that. What does that tell you? And if you vote for somebody who is demonstrating to you and has demonstrated for the last 5+ years that they do not care about you, when you vote for them, what does that say about you? It means that you do not care about yourself and you are endorsing a behavior of somebody who wants to lead you that doesn't care about you. That means that you're willing to be collateral damage for whatever his idea of St. Lucia is supposed to be. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. But yet, like I said, we're at the point now where it's just supposed to be tribal war. So the question becomes to the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, right? Y'all can send out messages when you hear that I'm going to do something, but when Herod is doing something and when Fortuna is doing something, y'all say nothing. You had these incidents. Y'all have admitted that y'all will use and reference social media videos and so on. There was a video that came out about, what, 2 months ago, of 2 guys that were racing up top of the world Marisil, past Wyndham, whatever the place is, what it's called now, going up to top of the world Marisil. And the insurance council said they were going to not insure those guys' vehicles. The police were going to take action against those 2 guys. We are waiting to hear of the action to be taken for that driver over in Mark. And again, folks, you have at least 3 constituencies where vehicles from the United Workers' Party pass through assemblages of, obviously, I guess you would say, Labour Party supporters. Why is it that they are taking such offense to what the Labour Party is doing? Because at the end of the day, Shasne has re-socialized this country to believe that you're supposed to suffer in silence and that you are ungrateful if you speak out because you feel like you're being treated like shit, and you can show how you're being treated like shit, both in your bank account, when you look at your family, when you look at your community, when you look at crime, healthcare, the economy, and everything else. So, let's hear what was said this morning.
You see this doctrine, this Belrose doctrine, this has opened my eyes to a lot of things, you know. I understand now why they take it so seriously, why they're so passionate about their party, because they believe, Stanley, that when my party is in office, they will look after me. They will look after my interests, because the other one, the ruling, which I didn't support, they won't check for me. That's how people are thinking. And that was, that was confirmed by that doctrine.
But Andre, even the people who are not looking for anything from their party, they have their party, and some people, they don't shift. They might be angry, and you hear them saying a lot of things about their party. Maybe the party is in government. Oh, they criticize, but it's their party, Andre. It's their party. So it's just, and increasingly that number is growing. You have independent people who shift depending on how they see the performance of this party, the performance of that party. But then you have blocks, United Workers' Party, St. Lucia Labour Party, and they don't shift. If they're really, really upset with their party, they might stay at their home on election day. But to get them to shift, that's almost impossible. But you have those in the middle who, depending on how they see things in the country, and they see, how they gauge performances, would decide, okay, I'm going this way or I'm going that way.
Yeah. Just finally, I asked the gentleman here this morning in terms of, how do they think their chances are of, winning the constituencies that they want to contest. And they sound pretty confident that they'll wrest the seat from, especially, I think, the gentleman for going up against Philip J. Pierre, Mohammed. He seems pretty confident. Yeah. Okay. Pretty confident. Yeah. But anyway, Sandy, with the politics, I just want to mention two other things, and then maybe we can move on. Yes. I tell you, it was really disturbing. I didn't like that behavior on the part of this driver, who seemed to not really care too much about the Labour Party supporters. He just drove through them, and thank God nothing bad happened. Now, you know what I would have really liked? I would have really loved for the incumbent to have come out and condemned that sort of behavior, okay? Because these are clearly supporters of the United Workers' Party. I would have loved it if they, by now, they should have done it, but obviously they've chosen not to do it. I don't think we're going to get any condemnation because certain people had an opportunity to do it and they haven't done it. And imagine the opposition now, right, came out to speak about that incident, okay? So I'm saying, you mean to say the incumbent doesn't realize, you had to wait, in fact, you allowed, the opposition to comment on that thing, and you're not commenting on it? Yeah. To me, it's kind of embarrassing for them, because something like that should be condemned.
Yes, forthright.
Everybody should be condemned, because this is not right. Somebody could have gotten hurt.
Yes.
All right? But you know the way we are in St. Lucia.
Yeah, we want a spirited campaign, Andre. We want a lively campaign, colorful, within the COVID-19 constraints. But we don't want anything bordering on the violence or the threats and stuff.
Yeah.
We don't want.
And I like the language that was used by the Labour Party. I'm saying we strongly condemn because a lot of things could have gone wrong at that time. They're saying both with our supporters and UWP supporters. I like the tone, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And she says that was from Mondi Loisa. I'd like to reiterate what our party leader has said. If we're calling for calm and a sober campaign. I like that. You understand? Okay. And I'm saying the ruling party should not have allowed, right, the SLP to make a statement on that incident. And I like the language. I like the way that they're going with that. And the other thing I didn't like, Stanley, I was a little disappointed, is the Prime Minister's response, right, to the incident involving the pan thing at 6:30 in the morning by his residence, right? I found that he made light of it, and I didn't like that. Right? I consider that an annoying thing. There are laws against those things in our country. I'm not saying people cannot protest if they want to protest. You can always protest, but there are laws. And if you go against the law, then you're going to have to suffer the consequences, right? You need to ask for permission to protest. You can't just go and protest just so. You need to ask for permission. And if you choose to go against what the law says, then you have to pay the price, which is you most likely will be detained, right? So I'm just saying, when he responded, to me, he made light of it.
So folks, two things. First of all, to Andre, if you have an assembly of more than 3 people, then you're supposed to go for permission, to write for permission to protest. But even that has been misconstrued, because what is supposed to happen is you're not supposed to get permission from the police. The police are supposed to tell you if there's any mitigating factor that would make it so that you cannot protest in that particular place, if it's a place where ambulances come or whatever it is, that type of a thing. But that's a law that needs to be revised. We need to be able to protest no matter who's in office. These are the impediments to our democracy that have us in this mess right now. And if this government is unseated, we have to insist that no matter who's in office, that law is amended. But what's worse, I mean, I have done protests on my own, and I will be doing so again. But beyond that, Shasney, and I keep saying that, an immoral narcissist doesn't care. Oh, you should be thinking about your family. I agree. You should say that. First of all, Shasney is saying that it was on his premises. It wasn't on his premises. But nonetheless, the point is, he would have every right to say my family and this and that and the other. I agree. But Shasney only cares about politics right now. It's all about power. So the reason he's doing all this thing, bring the Buddha and some sauce and all the rest of that, is purely because at the end of the day, the priority for him is not making the right statement about his family or their safety or whatever. It's about what's politically expedient. That's what happens when you have an amoral narcissist as your leader. But they'll tell you, boy, both parties are the same Cambridge Analytica thing. But you can clearly see somebody who up to right now is still demonstrating that he doesn't really care about you. He will only do things that seem like he cares about you if it is something that has tangential benefits to the people he truly cares about, which is the FFF. End of story. But there is a way forward.
The opposition St. Lucia Labour Party says now more than ever, St. Lucia deserves leaders who will care for the holistic development of the country. On the anniversary of the last election, the opposition leader on Sunday evening reiterated some of the party's plans to take St. Lucia forward if they are elected into office. Genevieve Gonzague has more.
On Sunday, June 6, marked 5 years since the 2011 general election, which saw the victory of the United Workers' Party with 11 constituents.
Creative industries, our youth economy will ensure that these hobbies are turned into entrepreneurship and these skills are turned into business. That is the essence of our new economy. And that new economy that includes the youth economy will ensure that there is skill training for the young people, there is finance for them to expand and start their businesses, and there is marketing so they can sell their products not only in St. Lucia but regionally and globally.
Pierre says his administration will initiate an inclusive business recovery strategy that will benefit all and do away with what the party says is the existing reality of two St. Lucias.
We intend to include everyone in this new business strategy: hotels, small business, vendors, self-employed. And this business strategy will include a complete revision of taxes, duties, and processes. We have started that review. We have started that strategy. What we're saying to you is that everyone who gets less than $4,000 a month will pay no tax under the St. Lucia Labour Party.
Pierre explained that the current administration has failed to make adequate use of the scarce resources available to benefit the country. He went further to explain what form the new business strategy for St. Lucia will take.
A revision of taxes and a revision of duties. How will we initiate more business? By putting more money in the hands of you, the people of St. Lucia. So when there is no income tax on your first $4,000 of income, everybody below grade 10 will pay no tax. Our young graduates who return from university will pay no tax. They will have more money in their pockets and they will be able to spend that money in the economy and generate more jobs.
Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
And that's why it's good to have an actual track record that demonstrates how you govern or how you would govern. So let's take, for example, you say, oh, everybody says these things when they're in opposition, and it's true. But from an economist standpoint and an accountant standpoint, it makes sense for St. Lucians to have more money in their pockets right now, especially with the Shastny government that is not giving any stimulus, because it would help stimulate the economy. So it's not just caring. Now, I believe both parties had people and policies that address the needs of people in the past. The UWP and the Labour Party had different methodologies towards progress, but there was always a general acceptance that both parties were at least trying to do things in the interests of St. Lucians. Whether they were yellow or red St. Lucians, black, white, whoever, north, south, there was that belief that if UWP was in power, that they still cared about St. Lucians. If the Labour Party was in power, that they cared about St. Lucians. And now that is not the case under Shastny. Even those people like your Spiders and your Bradley Felixes, who you thought would have cared about St. Lucians, Shastny has shown their true character and made it something for them to be proud of. Just checking for themselves, enriching themselves, putting aside for themselves. Greed is the mantra of this government. and it's seen as a virtue to be extolled at the expense of people, even in crisis situations. But with Philip J. Pierre, whether he talks about hotels, he can tell you in the time that he was tourism minister, he built 6 hotels. 6 hotels were built under his tenure. At the same time, he was involved in the establishment of the Grenada Tourism Authority. Shasney, Minister of Tourism, the guru, not one single room was added to the room stock, let alone of any hotel, let alone a new hotel coming in. But promises always, grandiose promises. So let's see, in terms of Shasney, exactly the track record. We'll give you a little snippet, and you'll see if you are prepared to vote for Shasney or Shasney in terms of which version you want to believe. So let's go back to the year 2015.
The leader of the opposition United Workers' Party has accused the Prime Minister of being out of touch with the plight of workers and ordinary citizens.
People don't have any credibility in what he's doing. People are hungry. People are hurting. People are living in despair in this country right now. And this government continues to come to Parliament to discuss things that are not going to affect the livelihoods of the average person.
The Prime Minister's report this week on the state of the economy can only be described as being dishonest and delusional. How do you know that your policies are working? How do you know if you're bringing relief to the people of St. Lucia? But you see, this government has become a tax and spend government. And the spending has been in areas which is not inducing any form of economic growth.
Wow. Shasney said in 2015 that the Kenny Anthony administration was a tax and spend government, that people are hungry and people are hurting, yet you have thousands of St. Lucians wringing their pants to tell you that they're hungry, and the only thing you can think to say is you are upset because they did not bring food for you. How elitist can you get? Talk about imperialism on display. But the Labour Party was taxing, too much tax and spend, yet Shasney has crashed the economy. And who is spending more and borrowing more than Shasney on the wrong things? I don't know, but I'll also tell you, this is the same person that in the middle of all of this, even now as an achievement, is boasting about taxes that he added when he got into office.
Every program that we have comes back down to how do we improve the quality of life of the people in this country.
The UWP leader argued that coming into office on the heels of a Labour government meant an uphill battle for the UWP administration. The country, he says, was on the brink of collapse. But he argued that the UWP government took a measured approach to improving the coffers of government while cushioning the impact on more vulnerable sections of society.
It was difficult. And we knew it was going to be difficult going in. And part of that problem was that there was no money. Nobody was willing to lend any money to St. Lucia. Nobody feels sorry for St. Lucia. There was no person out there, despite the fact that the Labour Party tried to get a billionaire and make him an ambassador in hopes that he was going to solve their problems. We all know how that story ended. We have to solve the problems ourselves. And that's why we introduced 2 taxes, the airport tax and a gas tax. And that's why we introduced 2 taxes, the airport tax and a gas tax.
So here you have Shasney, who 5 years ago, well 6 years ago, literally was saying that the Kenny Anthony administration was taxing too much and spending too much and didn't care about the people who are hungry and suffering. Yet here you have Shasney now boasting. The proof is there now. Up to Sunday, he is telling you that he put on new taxes. So folks, again, it comes down to you now. You have, whether you want to get drunk and high on the politics and all the tribal this, that and the other and get into the red, yellow and all the rest of that and just the visceral, banal support without any depth of thought is up to you. But if ever there was a time that you needed to make a sober decision, it's now. And what I mean by that is very simple. Let's say you don't like the Labour Party, you don't like this candidate, you don't like the leader, you don't like that one. Let's say that you like whatever, you like Bradley, and you know that a vote for Bradley means Bradley comes with Pinkley, comes with Fresh Start, comes with all of the rest that plunder in the sand. You have to think about those things. A vote for Spider is a vote for Shasney and kidnapping, apparently. All of those things come in. Where do you see yourself in Shasney's new St. Lucia? I don't see you at all. I see some Malaysians, I see some rich, well-to-do people that buy out all our... Oh no, I don't have to wait for 5 more years to see it. It's already been happening. We are being slowly, gradually flushed down a toilet while this government is building their bourgeois enclave and enriching themselves so that they can participate in it and positioning themselves in terms of the food supply, fisheries, agriculture, everything they take in for themselves. So for you now, right now, let's say you want to support the UWP. But let's be honest. It took you 15 years to get tired of Kenny Anthony. Let's be honest. You've been tired of Shasney from, God knows, 2018, 2017. You've had to try to ignore him because you support the party and everything. There's nobody excited about voting for Shasney. There are people who will just toe the line like Norbert and so on and Minerva and sing for their supper. But if you're talking about people who genuinely like and love, there are people who like and love Stephenson King and Kenny Anthony and my father and John Compton. But Shasney, even the people in the business community and the upper echelons of society who have benefited from Shasney, they like what he does for them, but they know the kind of a-hole that he is, and we all do. But just imagine now, he's telling you that he does not need 3 years. He does not need 2 terms. He's now saying that he needs at least 2 terms. At least 2 terms.
Should it be every dog that barks that I should respond and determine that I'm arrogant? But it's going to take me, and I've said this from the get-go, it takes 3 years. It takes me 3 years to re-engineer the civil service and changing the way that people think, holding people more accountable and getting more productivity. It's going to take me 3 years to change our culture in terms of how we are processing, getting contracts to farmers so people aren't wasting their time. It's going to take me 3 years to get the infrastructure of this country fixed. It's going to take me 3 years to get the finances of this country fixed.
Let us not make the decisions for one term. Because if you make decisions for one term, you're going to rush. I have to make the decisions based on 2 terms. Okay? And I have to have the confidence that if I do the right thing, that regardless of what we hear going on now, that people will support doing the right thing.
But it's going to take me, and I've said this from the get-go, it takes 3 years.
Based on 2 terms. Okay?
5 years of United Workers' Party rule elapsed on June 6, 2021. The party's convincing 11-6 election victory has been attributed to their catchy "Five to Stay Alive" mantra and other ambitious campaign promises set out in their winning manifesto of 2016. On June 6, the UWP's campaign catchphrases and manifesto objectives were front and center of a nationally televised public address to mark the 5th anniversary of their election victory.
Our plans were clearly stipulated in our manifesto for the 2016 elections. We promised you that we would be building a prosperous and progressive St. Lucia. The idea was not to build a better St. Lucia, but to build a new St. Lucia. Because if the road has potholes and you've patched it, even though it's bumpy, the road is better. But if you build a new road, then you're on track to building a new St. Lucia.
UWP political leader Alan Shasney has asked the electorate for more of it. A total of 2 terms, or the equivalent of 10 years in office, to accomplish his campaign promises.
We also understood that there was no way that you could deliver in 1 term everything that we had to do. And we made it very clear from the beginning that at minimum we needed 10 years to solidify the changes that were required in St. Lucia.
In previous public statements from the Prime Minister, he proposed a 3-year timeline. First in 2017,
I'm not complaining. We're going to get all those things fixed. But it's going to take me, and I've said this from the get-go, it takes 3 years.
And again, almost 3 years later in 2020.
Recall that on assuming office in 2016 and on other occasions thereafter, I indicated that our government would need about 3 years before we'd really start seeing tangible results. Our task was not easy. We also understood that there was no way that you could deliver in one term everything that we had to do. And we made it very clear from the beginning that at minimum we needed 10 years.
At minimum, Shasney needs 10 years. No wonder he's already on his 6th year. And if he wins, then where does the goalpost shift to? Maybe he will stay till he's 81 and the 15 years of the DSH project. St. Lucia, it's up to you. Good afternoon, caller.
Good afternoon, Christopher.
Good afternoon, sir. Are you ready to vote for Shasney for another 2 terms?
That cannot happen. That must not happen. And that will not happen.
Why?
I am calling today, Christopher, to hold the feet that driver to the fire. That driver who almost mauled down these people on the Bexo Highway. I believe that y'all too, Christopher, and I have to put a little pressure on you and to the media houses, all media houses, because in the early parts of the situation with Joachim Henry, every media house pontificate, every media house crucify Joachim Henry to the cross. They didn't take into consideration nothing. They didn't take into consideration that he was mourning the loss of his son. Even the church, the pastors, the so-called men of the cloth, who are supposed to be armed with forgiveness, they too played a role in crucifying Joachim Henry to the cross. That driver, there are many questions that have to be asked about him. Number one, what was his state of mind? In other words, what was his mental state? And I'm asking that an evaluation be conducted on him. Was he suicidal at the time? Was he under the influence of alcohol? And a drug test must be performed on him. Was that driver under the influence of cocaine? Did he have any explosives in his hand on board the vehicle? Was he a suicide bomber? You see, we do not know response to these questions, and we have to pursue that relentlessly. And in closing, based on the accounts of eyewitness on a different TV station who was there, based on her account, she had reasons to believe, or she had reasonable grounds for suspecting that because of a few persons that are in Joachim Henry camp now, who was in the other party camp, she had reasonable grounds for suspecting that that was the reason why that driver, and based on her words, made an attempt to kill her. That is what she said. Her life is being threatened, and I'm calling upon all these people being threatened to make a report, and it is all left to the Director of Public Prosecution to do his work, to DCP Shalry to do his work, and charge this man. There are offenses in which he could be charged. He could be charged for driving without due care and attention for other road users or dangerous driving. Now, Christopher, you can kill somebody through your negligence, you know.
Caller.
You may not be able to, you may not have the intention to kill that person, but one can kill someone through negligence. I am monitoring that situation.
Thank you, caller.
I am monitoring. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. As we take this other call that's been on hold, let me say, first of all, When it came to the Joachim matter, I can commiserate. Like I said, I understood his position. I feel for him. He'll have to live out the rest of his life in a way that I don't wish on anybody. But the fact of the matter is, I will still say when something is right and when something is wrong. Now, this gentleman who drove the vehicle on Sunday and the others you can look at it and dice it how you want, but it obviously was a coordinated strategy. The fact of the matter is that you could charge him with vehicular manslaughter. To go and test him now for drugs and all the rest of that type of stuff, it was Sunday, today is Tuesday, not going to work out. But I will say all of that is not about the media not doing its job. It's about the police there right now. The police have said that even if they're not present, they can use social media to go and investigate things. We await an announcement. We have a call. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chris.
Good afternoon, sir.
Chris, I fully intended, before you showed that clip where Andrea and Stanley were, talking about the Belrose Doctrine.
This morning.
To speak about the DSH and the foolishness that the Prime Minister is now talking about that particular issue. But, I guess by now, St. Lucians know everything they need to know about, about DSH. Chris, Andre Paul said something to the effect that, in the clip that you showed, that people are expecting that when they vote for a party, the party, will do stuff for them, and so on and so on. And in terms of the Belrose Doctrine, he's now, understanding, what Belrose is actually saying and this and that and the other. Chris, it goes deeper than that. Way deeper than that. Chris, look. When Fortuna Belrose makes a statement like, Castries East did not embrace the vision, the philosophy of the Prime Minister, and they chose instead to vote or embrace the philosophy, the vision of the candidate of the parliamentary rep, who is the leader of the opposition, Philip J. Pierre, for Castries East. And on that basis, the government is addressing the needs of the 11 constituencies that voted for them and ignoring the 6 that did not. Chris, look, when Andre said that there are people, supporters, who are looking for basically handouts.
Yeah, you said that already.
Yeah. He's right. And it's not that Fortuna Belrose and those the supporters of the United Workers' Party in the various constituencies are not going to get, at least some of them, handouts from the government, The fact is, on the macro level, and when I say macro, I'm talking about the constituency itself, the constituency overall. And let us talk about Castries East. At the macro level of the constituency, Fortuna is saying she and the government, they're going to ignore completely the needs of the constituency, not some constituents, especially some of those who support the United Workers' Party, but ignore the needs of the constituency of Castries East and those other constituencies that supported or voted for the SLP. Whether you're United Workers' Party, whether you're SLP, in those constituencies, they're going to completely ignore you. Ignore that constituency. So, for instance, roads that are going to benefit the entire constituency, forget that. Other stuff they're supposed to do or they ought to do in those constituencies that are going to benefit those entire constituencies, forget that, because you didn't vote for the government, you didn't vote for the United Workers' Party. And Chris, the egregious thing about that is Fortuna and the United Workers' Party are saying to people, based on everything that is happening under this government, even if all 17 constituencies vote for the United Workers' Party, the policy, the overriding policy we have of supporting our friends, family members, and select foreigners will come first over the needs of every single constituency and the constituents within those constituencies. That's what is happening. That's what they're saying. That's what they're showing in terms of everything that they're doing. And it is clear that that is what it is. And if we don't see that by now, then we might as well forget it. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, caller. Just so it's said, I want you to think about this. Chasney's vision, and they call him a visionary, is to take money from UWPs, SLPs in all different constituencies, people who support no party, and literally use it for only those who have supported him. If that's not imperialism, I don't know what is. And then to justify it. Shouldn't that scare you if you live in any constituency, knowing that you could even vote for him, and he'll take your money and not use it to benefit you, your family, or your community in healthcare or anything else? We have a call on hold. Good afternoon. Hello? Now we have that call. Good afternoon.
I'm close on it. Huh?
Yes, caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, Christopher Hunt, the great Christopher Hunt.
Good afternoon, sir. Long time no hair.
Yes, Christopher. The corridors of the challenges of great uncertainty. But there is no shame in the game. I am down, but I am out. As you are aware, and TV Land has been aware, I have been struggling with a chronic eye condition for a little while.
Yes.
But reality would have think, and you know, acceptance sometimes is the most difficult thing. The eventuality happened, my brother, on April the 10th. I have lost that sight, but I have not lost my mind.
Okay.
I am still, I am down, but I'm not out. But I just needed to let you know,
okay,
and let people in radio, in television know your elucidation and the great work that you're doing. Life was never meant to be a bed of roses. These are the frailties of life. But as others has gone through me, it is a challenging time for me. But I will prevail. So now,
hold strong. Yes, indeed.
I can justify and I can testify to other persons that I have walked through the corridors of challenges. So I know what it is to suffer with loss of sight, loss of sight.
Mm-hmm.
That is it, my brother.
Wow. Well, I thank you for calling. I did not know. I know on Sunday the round the island for me in terms of capture and everything was very hectic. But I must take some time or make some time to come to see you because you are a crucial soldier. The crux of the
matter, my brother, there is no state secret. That is what I like. I have always been that social, conscientious person. I still have the breath of life. I am still so thankful. I can still listen, and listening is an art which probably I was a little short of. But I have been listening to you. I have been listening to Tricia, Frederick. I've been listening to Andre. I've been listening to. But I just figured that I needed to let you all know in Radio Land and Vision Land that yours truly, Gregor Stanislas, once the mayor of Denver, you know. Yes, my brother.
Thank you, Colin.
Great stuff as usual. That doesn't mean because I cannot see, I'm not knowing what is going on, but the pan and everything. And thank you for your tremendous innovation, Tricia, Yadi, and all the other rest. Keep on the good works. Keep on the good works, my brother.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm not being repetitious, but it is a challenge, and it's only those who have walked through those corridors can identify and can testify, but there are other persons that have been there before me. Thank you again.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much for calling. We'll try to take in one more call. Good afternoon, caller. No? Okay. All right. So we lost that other call. Folks, it's going to come down to, because you hear Shasney, he hasn't even won his second term. He's overstayed now. This is indeed the third day of the 6th year of his 5-year term, and yet he's already talking about needing at least 10 years. If that doesn't scare the shit out of you, I don't know what else would. Good afternoon, caller. Your final caller.
Good afternoon, Chris, and how are you?
I'm okay. I'm ready, as the shirt says.
So am I. So am I. So are we. Chris, I'm so ashamed. It's not funny. You mean to tell me Shasney couldn't complete that hospital for the people?
He could have completed the hospital, but it would not have been financially beneficial to him, Guy Joseph, and all their cohorts. So the people suffered instead, and continue to suffer.
Let me just inform them. Sometimes you have all the money in the world, and that is the hospital you have to end up in.
Very true. Very
sometimes
true.
something happened to you in the south, before you reach Cassie, you're dead. You might as well go there.
That's why I took some comfort in one thing about the pandemic, was that all those who would be able to run and get military helicopter for their brother and their father, and this and the other, to fly them to Martinique when we were locked down under COVID, was the first time that you saw the fear that all of us face, because every time they have to do anything, they just fly to Miami and go to Bishop's Hospital and all the rest of that, and they care with you. It was a great equalizer.
But one of these days, they won't be able to fly either.
Agreed.
God and Stephen.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much for calling.
One more thing, please.
Oh yeah, sorry, I thought.
Shasney really is not ashamed, you know. We have the great wall of Shasney.
In order to be ashamed, you have to have shame. I heard Andre talk about shame. I mean, Shasney has clearly demonstrated that he will lie 1 minute, say another thing another minute. He will fake emotion. He will do whatever, because at the end of the day, narcissists don't have any true sense of true emotion or empathy.
Honestly, can you imagine his drive and Shasney, the wall of Shasney? There are so many farmers who, of course, they could have named that place after them.
I thought
farmers, there are nurses, there are doctors, there.
They could have named it after Arson James even. I would have been okay with that.
True.
But
True. Shasney just came there and then he told me that.
But caller also recognized that it's not the first time he did that, because in Soufrière, he built a footbridge just before elections and he named that after himself too.
I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous, and the people should see. Anyway, the people in Mirikuts are waiting for him.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much. Have a great day. So folks, I'm closing with a very long clip, but I think it's very necessary. They believe that the pandemic thing is just a local phenomenon, that St. Lucians all over the diaspora are not doing it, that only the people that were in the streets or on the roads were doing it. And even though I showed people on the hillsides, people in houses and so on, but they said it was madness. They're trying to say it's a psychological problem, but the truth is we are mad, but it's the mad in terms of righteous anger. So today I'm going to show you more of the pandemic, all those that I wasn't able to feature because of all of the content that was on the road. And take it or leave it, all I can tell you is the sentiments that I experienced on the ground, I think are real.
We are all around the island, in the US, we have the UK, we have Canada, and we say to you, you must. Yeah, that's must go. Brother, that's must go. And he must go.
Time up. All elections, time up. They must go. Ireland must go. All of them must go. Shasley have to go. Shasley must go. Shasley have to go. We tired of this go. Shasley must go.
We're panning all the way today.
No, I just want the fellas to know that you remember Marsha.
What you know?
Baby, that's it, my baby. Yes, yes.
Oh my God! We ready!
Just take all the elections. Call it.
Fun, Shasty must go. All of them must We need it right now. All the way from Toronto, we're chanting it. Drop the thing right now. must go.
Bring it. Bring it.
That guy Joseph must go. I know that guy Joseph must go. No, I know that guy Joseph must go. I know that guy Joseph must go.
The opinions expressed on this TV program by the hosts, co-hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions and responsibility of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of UTV or its affiliates.